Vertical and horizontal stretching don't change the shape of the graph. They just move the graph around. The last thing we'll consider in this section is vertical stretching and compression. And those do change the shape of the graph. So let's try to get a handle on what we're talking about here. We've got an x-axis and we've got some curve. We're going to talk about stretching this curve. And what we mean by that is stretching it away from the x-axis. So points above the x-axis are going to be pulled up. Values below the x-axis are going to be pulled down. And let me say up front how this is done. We just take f of x and we multiply it by k. And that stretches the graph away from the x-axis by a factor of k. And here, k is a positive number greater than 1. So here's a function. Let's make sure we're using function notation. And now let's multiply that function by 2. So this point here got pulled upwards to that point there. This point here, being below the x-axis, got pulled downwards to this point here. So if you think it might be helpful, if you think of the curve as being made now not out of a stiff wire, but outside of some stretchy material, and you think of the material as being attached to the x-axis at these points, we are just taking the curve and stretching it away from the axis, hence vertical stretching. Probably when you see a restriction like this, k has to be greater than 1. The question that comes to mind is, well, what happens if k isn't greater than 1? that compresses the graph. It smushes it towards the x-axis. So going back to this graph, if instead of 2, we had 0.3, you see this point up here is now smushed down. This point down here is smushed up. Finally, before we end this video, what if k is negative? This does the stretch or the compression as if k were positive, but then it reflects the graph over the x-axis. What on earth do I mean by that? Let's go to Desmos one last time. Let's look at f of x, and let's multiply this by -2. The 2 stretches it. The negative flips it across the axis. So this point at 0, 2 is going to flip down here to 0, -2. Just as I said, this point at 2, -6, we can't see to +6. Now we can. This point at 2, -6 will flip up to 2, +6, just as predicted. So it does the stretching. This point got stretched down to here, and then it was flipped over the axis.